Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. Switch gears. Want to go ahead and talk a little bit of college football. By the way, you know it's a big breaking story when Torres just throws on the hat first thing on Saturday morning and records a quick little reaction, but thought it was important to discuss what it was an interesting development overnight with a guy who we thought was going to be Alabama's offensive coordinator. That was Ryan Grubb, and that ain't going to happen, okay? So we actually talked about this story a week ago. Ryan Grubb has been Kalen DeBoer's right-hand man everywhere he has gone for the most part, which I think is interesting. And obviously most recently with the Washington Huskies, where DeBoer, Grubb, that whole staff helped Washington to the national championship game where they ultimately lost to Michigan. But it was about a week ago where we found out, wait a second now, as Lee Corso would say, not so fast, my friend. Ryan Grubb would be interviewing for NFL offensive coordinator jobs, specifically with the Seattle Seahawks. In the city that him and DeBoer just were. There was talk that maybe his family didn't want to move to Tuscaloosa, whatever, blah, 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 blah. But we got word about a week ago that Ryan Grubb would be interviewing for that Seattle Seahawks job. Then it got really quiet. Then it looked like he might not get it. It was crazy. He actually showed up on the speaking circuit this past week on Wednesday. I apologize that I forget the name off the top of my head of the event that he was at. But he basically was like, yeah, I'm Ryan Grubb, your new offensive coordinator. He gets a big round of applause. But even that was kind of weird. I noticed that over the last couple of days, we haven't got anything official from Alabama. And even that appearance itself was kind of strange. Kind of reminded me of one of those like Netflix documentaries where somebody goes missing and you kind of see them on like a video camera, like a gas station camera somewhere, but nobody can really confirm, okay, what was that about? Is that official? Is that not official? Is the person safe? Whatever. Well, Ryan Grubb is thankfully safe, but he ain't coming to Tuscaloosa because on late Friday night, we find out, as first reported by Adam Schefter, that Ryan Grubb is staying in Seattle as the offensive coordinator of the Seattle Seahawks under new head coach Mike Macdonald. And so I think the question right now very simply becomes for Alabama fans here on an early Saturday morning as you get ready to watch the Tide play LSU in basketball, although I know many of you will watch after. The big question, bottom line, end of story, is simple. How worried should Alabama fans be? And I'm here to tell you, not that much at all. I really wouldn't be worried if I was an Alabama fan. And as I've often said, I'm going to make this a phrase if it kills me. Triple D, not diners, drive-ins, and dives. Don't doubt DeBoer. All right, so first of all, why I wouldn't be too concerned, okay? First thing, one, I don't want to diminish what Ryan Grubb has done at every level in helping Kalen DeBoer establish who Kalen DeBoer is. We all know they've basically been side by side essentially every step of the way in Kalen DeBoer's career. At Sioux Falls, at the NAIA level, at the group of five level, obviously at Fresno State, obviously at Washington. But as I said last week, it is worth noting there is one place that they did not work together, and it was arguably where Kalen DeBoer really set the trajectory to get to where he is now. That was when Kalen DeBoer was the offensive coordinator at Indiana. And so Kalen DeBoer has proven he can call an offense, he can run play, he can do things without Ryan Grubb. This isn't one of those, the person behind the person is actually the brains behind the operation. No, I think they worked really well together. But Kalen DeBoer has proved that he is capable without Ryan Grubb. In a lot of ways, you know what it reminds me of? Kirby Smart and Nick Saban. Kirby Smart was a very important part of the early part of the Alabama dynasty. But he wasn't the only part, and Nick Saban adjusted, and I think Kalen DeBoer will as well. Remember, that year at Indiana, like I said, it really set up essentially what is Kalen DeBoer's career trajectory now. He goes there, he works with Michael Penix, and while Michael Penix statistically was better at Washington the last 2 years, you could argue what he did there was as impressive as anybody when he was under Kalen DeBoer. Redshirt freshman, first year as a real starter, 69% completion percentage for Michael Penix. That was actually a higher completion percentage than any season that he had at Washington. Now, the offensive stats, the touchdowns and all that, the yardage wasn't as good, but he didn't have as much talent around him. But also, it's worth noting, you can find a pretty clear trajectory between Indiana being really bad, then they got really good for 1 year, and then they got bad again under their previous head coach, Tom Allen. You know what that year was? It was when Kalen DeBoer was at Indiana without Ryan Grubb. By the way, worth noting, who was the defensive coordinator that year? Kane Womack, who, of course, is now the Alabama offensive coordinator. But Kalen DeBoer has proven he can do things at a high level without Ryan Grubb. Beyond that, and I think this is important, this is what I keep going back to with DeBoer. We've talked about him a lot this offseason because every move he makes is going to be overanalyzed. But at the end of the day, here's what you need to know, and here's what I truly believe in my heart of hearts. Smart people figure things out. What do I mean by that? Just look at Kalen DeBoer's career. You don't go from the NAIA level to the head coach at freaking Alabama if you don't know what you're doing. And every level of the way, every step of the way, with or without Ryan Grubb, Kalen DeBoer has figured it out and thrived, okay? Obviously, multiple national championships at Sioux Falls at the NAIA level. Could have stayed there forever. They probably would have built him a little statue in Sioux Falls, no disrespect intended, but he decided to move up the ladder. And then essentially everywhere he goes, they have success. Eastern Michigan, Kalen DeBoer's last year, they make their first bowl game pretty much in forever. He goes to Fresno State, immediately has success. I think the first year was the COVID year, and then he goes, 10-2, 9-3, whatever it is. Goes to Washington, has immediate success. And every step of the way, there have been new challenges. You can sit there and say, well, what about Alabama? What about this? What about that? Well, what about Sioux Falls when he had like one full-time had one full-time assistant and everybody else was a intern or a volunteer or whatever? How about Sioux Falls when you don't have scholarships? How about Fresno State, which, listen, I live in California, and insert your own commentary about California. Fresno State is not an easy job. Just because they were good 15 years ago when Derek Carr was there and Pat Hill was there, it's a tough job in a league where they don't have resources that most of the rest of the league has. That's not a knock. They have a great fan base, incredible fan base, as a matter of fact. But it isn't an easy place to win, and Kalen DeBoer essentially won immediately. Washington, he goes there, and you sit there and say, okay, it's a good job, history, this, that. But even while he was there, he beat a bunch of teams that had way more resources and better everything than him. Oregon is better resourced than him. You cannot deny that. He beat Texas twice with Sark. He beat USC this past year, beat UCLA. So this idea that he can't figure it out at Alabama, he's figured it out everywhere else. Why should you be worried? And so that is the bottom line. Everywhere he has gone, there has been new challenges. And so far, it is worth noting, by the way, every challenge that he's faced at Alabama, he's taken head on. Think about it. Got to Alabama. What were all the questions? Oh, my goodness. He's never put together a staff at this level. Well, now he's maybe put together the best staff in college football. Now, it's worth noting, obviously part of that staff was Ryan Grubb, but Kane Womack, sitting head coach, decides to leave that job at South Alabama to become the coordinator under Kalen DeBoer at Alabama. You think that guy would put his career on the line when he has had success at Alabama if he didn't believe in Kalen DeBoer? The defensive backs coach was the sitting head coach at Buffalo. Could have gone anywhere, could have stayed where he was. He wasn't fired. He wasn't on the hot seat. He was coaching. He was the head coach. Decides to leave Buffalo to come to Alabama. And so I just bring it up because, well, what kind of staff is he going to put together? I don't know. It was pretty freaking good to me. Oh, how is he going to recruit? Well, what does he do? Smart guy. Hires the best people in the business. Brings Courtney Morgan with him from Washington. And then added, we talked about this a few weeks ago, added Aaron Hodges, an elite player personnel guy who was at TCU, Ohio State, Purdue, a bunch of places. And everywhere they've gone, they have built their best recruiting classes when he has been there. Oh, by the way, how is Ryan Grubb or how is Kalen DeBoer going to recruit? Well, it's early, but he retained basically the entire 2024 class, except for Julian Sand. And that was because they brought in another quarterback to replace Julian Sand, basically. And he brought in Ryan Williams when Ryan Williams could have gone to Auburn, where his dad played, where he could have gone somewhere else, et cetera, et cetera. And so I could keep going on. He hasn't coached the game yet, and I keep saying it. If you need to wait until Kalen DeBoer coaches a game before you pass judgment on him, that's fine. That's your prerogative. I'm not going to get in the middle of it. But I need to judge. My job is to react to news as it happens in real time. And I'll be honest, I'm just not that worried. As I said, don't doubt DeBoer. If you enjoyed this video, do me a quick favor. Make sure to subscribe to the Aaron Torres Pod YouTube channel. New videos every single day. New podcast, new this, new that. Of course, also Monday, Wednesday, Friday, full episodes of the Aaron Torres podcast drop wherever you get podcasts, Apple, Spotify. But make sure to subscribe.